This week's 48 Hours investigates the unsolved murders of 4 teenage girls more than 3 decades ago. In 1991, Eliza Thomas, Sarah and Jennifer Harbison, and Amy Ayers were shot and killed in an Austin, Texas yogurt shop. Since then, there have been several confessions and even convictions, but all were overturned. 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty shows us how modern DNA testing could finally lead to answers.
So what is all of this here?
These are my notes.
It's been 30 years since John Jones led the search for the killers of 4 teenage girls in an Austin yogurt shop. He has since retired from the Austin Police Department, but the images of December 6, 1991 remain all too vivid.
I can still see them.
Eliza Thomas, Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, and Amy Ayers had been tied up and shot in the head. Then the yogurt shop was set on fire. A task force worked to find suspects.
We looked at everybody from family members to drifters.
Meanwhile, the victims' families and the city of Austin grieved.
I remember the shock.
Sonora Thomas was 13 years old when her only sibling, Eliza, was murdered.
You just hold on to anything you can to get through these moments that are so impossible.
Open the door!
Over the decades, there were arrests, even convictions, but those convictions were overturned. It left Jones and the families in emotional turmoil.
There is a kind of torture that continues by the fact that it's unsolved and it's ongoing.
But there may be hope. Male DNA called YSTR was found on one of the victims. It was an incomplete sample, but with advances in DNA research, there's a chance that the sample obtained 30 years ago may solve this case. Jones made a pledge to the families involving the shirt he wore on the night of the murders.
The next time they saw me with that green and white shirt on, that was a signal to them that, we knew who did it.
And John Jones has kept that shirt all these years later.
I just hope one of these days we can put this thing to bed for the family's sake.
Erin Moriarty joins us now. She's followed this case for decades. And Erin, you were just saying this is the most vicious case you've ever covered.
Oh, absolutely. There were 4 young women who were in a yogurt shop, with a part-time job. Who would ever expect something? And it wasn't just, that they were murdered. They were shot, then they were piled on top of each other, and they were burned. I mean, there's nothing worse. And so, what this case made me realize, and Gayle and I were talking about this, and I had not thought about this, is the impact on the investigators. We know these families have lost their loved ones, and they have to live with that, but you don't think the investigator also. And John Jones, there was so much pressure to solve this murder, and he was diagnosed with PTSD at one point. His marriage fell apart because he was so single-minded. He so much wanted to solve this case.
He's still holding on to the shirt that he was wearing that?
Well, because there have been times when people have been arrested and convicted, and he always promised the family, I will wear that shirt when I really believe we've got the killers. And he has not put that shirt on yet.
So what do we know about that partial DNA evidence that you just mentioned?
Okay, this is hopeful. So, we hear about genetic genealogy. Unfortunately, what they have is just partial, so they can't actually put it into a database yet. But there were recent tests. Originally, the profile had just 16 markers. Recent tests were able to yield 25 markers. So there's a hope that the next set of tests will be able to do more and maybe lead to the suspect, because I think most people believe where that DNA was means that person was involved, and it's going to lead to somebody.
Outside of the DNA, is there any other evidence?
Oh, there is this strange clue that has been just bugging me so much. So the people who were in the yogurt shop remember 2 men in their 20s who were not eating or drinking anything. They seemed suspicious to them then. They've never been identified. And all the years I've done stories, nobody's ever come forward and said, those 2 guys may have been. Right. And they have no pictures of them, no drawings.
It's just the phrase yogurt shop and murders. We were saying those 2 words just don't go together.
And that's why it's
and they shouldn't.
Kids go
quite frankly
in there most of the time.
Those 2 words shouldn't go together.
Right.
Erin Moriarty, thank you so much. And you can see Erin's report, The Yogurt Shop Murders, tomorrow night at 10/9 Central, right here on CBS, in the Viacom CBS streaming service, Paramount+.